Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a topic today that, well, it carries immense weight. Adolescent suicide.
Yeah, it really does.
It's so easy to look at this from a distance, as a problem to solve or just a set of statistics. But what if we shifted our perspective, maybe just for a moment, to try and understand what it must feel like for a young person? To be in such profound pain that ending their life feels like the only possible escape.
Thinking about it that way really changes things, doesn't it? It moves it beyond like a rational choice into something overwhelmingly emotional.
Exactly. And the numbers themselves, they paint a pretty stark picture. We're looking at nearly 30,000 suicides in the U.S. every year.
Hmm.
And tragically, around 18 of those, they're teenagers.
Yeah.
Every single day.
18 young lives. It's hard to even comprehend.
It is. And what's particularly concerning for you to understand is that many believe the reported figures might only be like half the actual number.
Right. The tip of the iceberg, potentially.
Which suggests a much larger, often hidden crisis.
And when you consider those numbers, it really underscores that while suicide is a broad societal issue, the the level of despair we're seeing in our youth demands a really focused effort. We need to understand the factors and, identify effective interventions.
That's precisely why we're doing this deep dive for you. We have Lillian M. Range's 1993 paper, Suicide Prevention, Guidelines for Schools.
Published in Educational Psychology Review.
Right. Now, 1993 might seem like a while ago,
It does, yeah.
but this paper provides a really critical foundation. It helps us understand how prevalent adolescent suicide was, what contributes to it, and maybe most importantly for you, what role schools can play in prevention. Our aim here is basically to extract the key insights and practical guidelines from this research and present them in a way that's clear and accessible, without getting bogged down in overly academic language.
And it's a fair question, like, why focus on a paper from '93? But the value is that while our understanding has definitely evolved, all the fundamental challenges and many of the initial ideas for how schools should respond, they're still remarkably relevant. This paper gives us a solid snapshot of the knowledge base back then, and honestly, many of its points still hold a lot of weight today.
Right. So let's start by looking at just how prevalent this issue was even back then. The paper highlights a really disturbing trend.
Yeah.
From 1950 up to the mid-1980s, suicide rates among young people, specifically ages 15 to 24, saw a really significant climb.
A steady increase.
It actually jumped from being the fifth leading cause of death to the third in that age group by 1980.
Wow. That kind of shift really signals a growing problem that, well, it clearly demanded attention then, and it still does now. For you to note, that historical context is important.
Absolutely. That historical increase is a key insight. It happened alongside big societal changes, right? Recognizing these long-term trends helps us appreciate this isn't new, but it's persistent.
Yeah.
Needs ongoing focus. And it's interesting, when you break it down by age, we often think of suicide with older adults, maybe. But the peak for suicide as a cause of death actually happens during adolescence and young adulthood.
Which is largely because, statistically, younger people are just less likely to die from other things like diseases.
Exactly. Back in the 70s and early 80s, young adults, so like 2024, actually had higher rates than teenagers, 15, 19. Although teen rates did hit a concerning high point around 1985. Thankfully, the rates were considerably lower in younger kids, say 5 to 14, and it was really rare in kids under 10. So you can kind of see how the understanding of death and maybe the motivations evolve with age.
Those age differences really highlight the developmental aspect, yeah. Like the paper points out, younger kids have a fundamentally different grasp of what death means, its permanence,
Right, its finality.
which naturally affects how they might see suicide as a potential solution.
Now, when we look at different demographic groups, some really stark contrasts emerge. Gender, for example, huge factor.
Yeah, very significant.
Men are statistically far more likely to die by suicide, about 5 times more likely than women.
5 to 1, yeah.
However, women attempt suicide more frequently, almost 1.5 to 3 times as often.
Which points towards the methods used, right?
Exactly. It appears the methods chosen are key. Men tend to use more immediately lethal methods, particularly firearms. And that's a really sobering statistic when you consider the paper notes.
Yeah.
The overall increase in youth suicide back then was largely linked to this increased use of guns.
That disparity between attempts and completions really underscores the critical role of method lethality. It's something important for you to consider in prevention efforts, that access to highly lethal means can tragically change the outcome, possibly linked to impulsivity, too.
Absolutely. Race is another really important factor here. The paper highlights Native American youth as a particularly high-risk group.
Tragically, the second leading cause of death for them.
Yeah. And while rates vary between tribes, the victims tend to be younger compared to the general population. And historically, white individuals have consistently shown higher suicide rates than non-white individuals, including Mexican-American and Black youth.
Although the rate among Black men did increase during that period studied.
It did, but it still remained lower than white men.
Yeah.
So you see these significant disparities across racial groups.
And the paper suggests some possible reasons for those lower rates among Black youth at the time. Maybe stronger coping beliefs, perhaps moral objections rooted in culture or religion.
Right.
Even potentially different cultural ways of expressing intense distress. It's a powerful reminder for you that cultural context is absolutely vital here.
It really is. And geographically, too, there were differences. Back in the 70s and 80s, young people in metropolitan areas and Western states seemed to be at higher risk.
Interesting.
And internationally, you saw higher rates reported in places like Eastern Europe, German-speaking countries, Scandinavia, Japan, while places like Greece, Ireland, Italy had comparatively lower rates.
These geographical variations really highlight for you that broader societal factors, economic conditions, cultural norms around mental health, maybe the availability of support, they all likely play a role. It's not just an individual issue.
Definitely influenced by the bigger environmental and cultural picture.
Yeah.
Now, here's a really crucial point the paper makes, and it's so important for you to remember this. While all these stats give us valuable info about group trends, they absolutely cannot predict whether a specific young person is at risk. We can see patterns, understand vulnerabilities.
But you can't use demographics alone to pinpoint who will attempt or complete suicide.
Exactly. It's just not possible.
That's a vital takeaway. Statistics help us see the big picture, maybe where to target interventions, but assessing individual risk. That needs a much more in-depth, personalized approach.
Okay, so suicide doesn't just appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
The paper goes into some of the significant problems that often go hand in hand with suicidal thoughts and behaviors. One major one is substance abuse.
Yeah, that link is well established and concerning.
The co-occurrence of drug and/or alcohol use is particularly dangerous. It can severely impair judgment, make depression worse, cloud thinking,
And lead to impulsive, risky actions. Substances can lower inhibitions, making someone more prone to acting on thoughts they might otherwise resist.
It's often a dangerous combination, something for you to understand. And unsurprisingly, psychological problems play a very prominent role. Depression is huge.
Huge! The paper indicates up to 80% of individuals who die by suicide had experienced some form of depression.
And it seems the longer a young person struggles with it, the greater their risk might become.
The duration and severity are critical indicators, yeah. Untreated or inadequately treated depression significantly elevates the risk. So early identification and treatment are key.
Then there's this profound feeling of hopelessness about the future.
Ah, yes. Hopelessness.
Even in kids as young as 8, this absence of any positive outlook can be there. And the paper makes a really important distinction for you here. Hopelessness isn't just like another symptom of depression.
Right, it's distinct.
Suicidal teens often feel like their future is completely fixed, unchangeable, bleak.
That deep sense of futility. It can be a very strong predictor of attempts, sometimes even more so than just the intensity of the depression itself. It erodes the will to cope, makes suicide seem like the only escape.
And feelings of helplessness, powerlessness too. Suicidal individuals often feel this overwhelming anxiety, desperately grasping for some certainty or control.
Yeah.
Even if that means considering actions that endanger their own life.
And it's often pervasive, right? Not just about one specific thing.
Exactly, a pervasive feeling that they are fundamentally unable to change their circumstances. The paper references Abramson, Seligman, and Teasdale, emphasizing this feeling often comes from within them, not just external situations.
That concept of learned helplessness is crucial. Believing that no matter what you do, the outcome will be negative. Feeling trapped.
Cognitive rigidity is another really interesting aspect.
The black and white thinking.
Yeah. Suicidal individuals, adults, and kids tend to think in these very absolute terms. Good or bad, life or death. And this gets even more pronounced under stress.
So one problem can feel like a total catastrophe, like their whole life is flawed.
It's like tunnel vision, isn't it? They can only see one negative outcome, can't imagine other possibilities. It's important for you to recognize that constriction.
Yeah, it severely limits their ability to consider alternatives or see any middle ground. Very constricted processing.
And the list goes on. Intense anger, hostility, disorientation, disorganized thoughts, even psychosis sometimes. They often have a very negative self-view, struggle with problem solving, can't generate alternatives easily, might even just keep trying the same ineffective solutions over and over.
It paints a picture of someone in immense distress, right? Struggling deeply with their inner world and their ability to navigate external pressures.
So the paper presents this kind of summary profile.
Mm-hmm.
Often a young white man, depressed, helpless, hopeless, maybe psychotic, under stress, coping rigidly.
But, and this is crucial again, very few individuals will fit every single one of those criteria perfectly.
Absolutely. You just can't pinpoint one specific person based on a checklist.
The complexity of how these factors interact just highlights the need for really comprehensive assessment and intervention. It's way beyond just ticking boxes.
Right. So since we don't have that foolproof prediction method, what kind of historical markers, what red flags from someone's past or recent behavior should we be looking out for? The paper outlines several important ones.
Okay.
Perhaps the most significant historical indicator is a previous suicide attempt.
Yeah, that's a major predictor. Suggests vulnerability and maybe a learned behavior that could be repeated if the underlying issues aren't addressed. Something really important for you to be aware of.
Other red flags in recent history include having access to the means, guns, pills,
Access is key.
and making what seem like final arrangements, like giving away prized possessions or saying unusual goodbyes.
Also, a persistent preoccupation with death, talking about it a lot. The music, the jokes.
Yeah, that could be a serious warning sign. Shouldn't be dismissed. It might signal that suicide isn't just a fleeting thought anymore, but maybe a more concrete plan or focus. A recent loss is another really critical marker. For a teenager, this could be a big relationship breakup, or even something adults might see as less major, like not making a team or a fight with friends.
And it's so important not to underestimate the impact of those losses on a teen.
Yeah.
What seems trivial to an adult can be a major crisis for them.
Absolutely devastating, yeah.
Yeah.
Their world and sense of self are still developing. These losses can trigger really intense grief, isolation, hopelessness. Important for you to understand.
Yeah.
A longer-term historical marker is a maladaptive family environment. Lack of support, conflict, hostility.
That can be particularly damaging for teens who rely heavily on family and might lack other strong connections. A stable, supportive family is a crucial protective factor. Its absence leaves a young person feeling really isolated.
And in adults, the paper notes the absence of a spouse also increases risk. Then there's this really interesting, sometimes overlooked aspect, a faulty understanding of death.
Yes. Pfeffer's work.
Right. Kids and teens might get the concept of death, but maybe not fully grasp their own death, especially with media exposure where death often lacks finality.
So for you to understand, a young person who doesn't fully get that their death would be irreversible might see suicide differently, like a temporary escape.
Exactly. Or just not comprehend the permanent consequences.
And the paper outlines those developmental stages, right? Around 7, maybe seeing it as temporary, like sleep. Around 10, real but happening to other older people. Then around 13, more personal, final, biological.
But even in adolescence, that understanding can be fuzzy, influenced by things like the personal fable.
That teenage belief that they're somehow special, immune to harm.
Yeah, invincible. Which can lead to really risky behaviors, including suicidal ones, because they don't truly believe they'll face the ultimate consequence.
And it can contribute to that romanticized view of death too, right? The Romeo and Juliet thing.
Totally. So that lack of fully appreciating finality, combined with typical teenage risk-taking and intense emotions, it creates a unique vulnerability.
That combination is definitely an area of concern.
Another potential marker. Knowing someone who attempted or completed suicide. This brings up behavioral contagion.
Where one suicide might unfortunately lead to others, especially among vulnerable youth.
The research is a bit mixed, especially on media influence.
Yeah, complex.
But it suggests that for some young people already struggling, exposure can, in certain circumstances, increase their own risk. Something for you to be aware of.
The mixed findings just underscore the complexity. It seems those already grappling with suicidal thoughts might be more susceptible to that contagion effect.
Finally, the paper mentions other stressors that can significantly increase risk, like a current disciplinary crisis, eating disorders like anorexia or bulimia,
History of physical or sexual abuse.
serious medical problems. AIDS was specifically noted back then as a high-risk factor. These things often just pile on top of existing vulnerabilities, can be the tipping point.
They frequently compound existing difficulties, yeah. Heighten the risk.
So the paper gives this composite picture, right? Child abuse history, hostile family, recent loss, knowing a victim, faulty understanding of death, thoughts about death, knowing the means, access to guns.
But again, it's rare for one person to tick all those boxes.
Exactly. But the presence of any of these should prompt further exploration. Caring questions about suicidal thoughts or plans. These historical markers give you valuable clues for identifying kids who might need extra support.
They offer important insights, definitely. Warrant careful attention.
Now, if we do have concerns, what kind of tools can help us get a better handle on the level of risk? The paper introduces several assessment tools, reliable, valid.
Meaning they measure consistently and accurately?
Right. And appropriate for kids and teens. Mostly self-report questionnaires.
They provide a more structured way to evaluate suicidal thoughts, behaviors, risk factors, complementing what we gather through just observation and conversation.
One is the Suicide Behaviors Questionnaire, or SBQ. There's a short 4-item version that's pretty reliable.
What does that ask?
Things like past attempts or thoughts, how often they've thought about it recently, if they've told someone they might try, and how likely they think an attempt is in the future.
Okay.
There are even versions with simpler language for younger kids. Its brevity makes it practical for an initial sense of risk, covering those key areas.
Practical for initial screening, yeah. Covers thoughts and past behaviors efficiently.
Another one is the Suicide Ideation Questionnaire, or SIQ. This one has 30 statements about suicide thoughts. The young person rates how often they've had each thought.
So lower scores mean more frequent suicidal ideas.
Generally, yes. There's a version for older high schoolers and a shorter one, the SIQ-JR, for middle school. Research shows SIQ scores correlate well with things like depression, anxiety, hopelessness, negative life events, and they tend to be lower in kids with higher self-esteem. Gives a more detailed picture of the intensity and frequency of the thoughts.
Provides more detail on a level of ideation itself. Useful.
Then there's the Reasons for Living Inventory, RFL. This one's interesting because it flips the script a bit.
How so?
Instead of focusing on suicidal thoughts, it lists 48 potential reasons not to commit suicide. The person rates how important each reason is to them.
Ah, focusing on protective factors.
Exactly. Things like beliefs about survival and coping, responsibility to family, concerns about kids, fear of the act itself, fear of social disapproval, moral or religious objections.
And does it work?
Yeah, it's been shown to differentiate between ideators and non-ideators, and even between attempters and non-attempters. So the RFL offers this unique perspective by focusing on why someone might choose to live, even when struggling. That could be really helpful for you to understand when developing positive intervention strategies.
Focusing on those protective factors, the reasons for living, is a valuable approach for interventions.
We also had the hopelessness scale for children, 17 true-false statements to assess hopelessness about the future.
Accessible for younger kids too, you said.
Yeah, written at a low reading level, good for ages 7+. Scores tend to correlate with depression and are often lower in kids with higher self-esteem and better social skills.
Yeah.
Assessing hopelessness is crucial for you, remember. Strong predictor of risk, sometimes even independent of depression.
Crucial, yes. Hopelessness is a major red flag.
Finally, the Children's Depression Inventory, CDI. This has 27 groups of 3 statements. The child picks the one in each group that best describes how they've felt recently.
Like, I am sad sometimes, I am sad often, I am sad all the time.
Something like that, yeah. It's shown good reliability, measures depressive symptoms consistently. It's valid too distinguishes between depressed and non-depressed kids, and scores correlate with hopelessness for ages 8 to 17.
Helps identify those underlying depressive symptoms, which we know are strongly linked to suicide risk. Important for you to be aware of.
So the paper emphasizes all these tools can be useful, reliable, valid, assessing different aspects of suicidality.
Different pieces of the puzzle.
Right. The SPQ is brief, covers past, present, future thoughts, behaviors. The RFL has that positive focus, might avoid the potential negative reactions some get from depression inventories.
That reactive effect, yeah.
But the key takeaway here for you is that these tools provide valuable info, but they should always be used as part of a comprehensive evaluation. That includes a mental health professional's clinical judgment and the individual's unique circumstances.
Absolutely. They're tools, not definitive answers on their own, part of a bigger picture.
Okay, so we've talked prevalence, related problems, red flags, assessment tools. Now, intervention strategies. The paper says the ultimate goal is fostering suicide resistance. What exactly does that mean?
Suicide resistance is basically about building up both the thinking patterns and the behavioral or emotional resources within a person. Things that act as deterrents, making suicide a less likely response when things get tough.
So on the cognitive side, what does that involve?
Helping teens develop strong internal reasons for living, specific self-statements they can use to remind themselves why suicide isn't the answer.
Like what?
Could be a deep belief in their ability to overcome things, strong moral or religious objections. Therapy can really help guide clients to identify, develop, even practice these life-affirming statements.
Okay.
Also crucial is building a stronger sense of internal locus of control, helping them believe they have more agency, more influence over what happens, rather than feeling like a victim of circumstance.
Right, feeling less helpless.
And just increasing their overall confidence in their ability to cope with life's difficulties. There are even specific programs designed to teach kids how to spontaneously generate helpful thoughts to regulate emotions and behaviors under stress. Developing these internal cognitive resources provides a powerful buffer against suicidal thoughts for you to understand.
A buffer, yeah. Makes sense.
The paper also highlights Marsha Linehan's dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, developed initially for folks who repeatedly attempt suicide.
Right, DBT. What are the key parts?
3 main components for you to know: validation, irreverent communication, and teaching problem-solving skills.
Okay, validation.
Frequently and genuinely acknowledging and empathizing with the person's intense emotional pain and desperation, really seeing and hearing their struggle.
Irreverent communication. That sounds interesting.
It means adopting a very matter-of-fact attitude when discussing past attempts or self-destructive behaviors, addressing them openly, directly, before moving on to other topics, not tiptoeing around it, but not being judgmental either.
Got it. And problem-solving skills.
Focusing on helping the individual reframe their behaviors and develop more functional, healthy ways to deal with problems. Includes specific skills training and emotional regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, distress tolerance, self-management.
So DBT really acknowledges the intense emotions.
Exactly. It aims to both validate those feelings and equip them with practical skills to manage them more effectively.
Another really important aspect of building resistance is developing effective, problem-focused coping skills.
Right, as opposed to just emotion-focused coping.
What's the difference again?
Problem-focused means actively trying to identify and address the sources of stress. Planning, restraining impulses, seeking support, reframing negatives into positives for growth.
Like actually doing something about the problem.
Yeah. Whereas emotion-focused is more about managing the feelings caused by the stress, maybe through avoidance, denial, just venting without tackling the issue.
And the paper says problem-focused is generally more adaptive.
Research suggests yes in the long run. Emotion-focused strategies can sometimes be less helpful. For you to understand, problem-focused is like studying for the test you're worried about. Emotion-focused might be trying to ignore the anxiety, which doesn't solve the test problem.
Okay. And individuals who attempt suicide are maybe more likely to use those less adaptive strategies.
Research mentioned in the paper suggests they're more likely to use avoidance, denial, focus on venting emotions rather than actively trying to solve the underlying problems.
So what skills do we need to help young people develop?
Things like making concrete plans to address problems, knowing how to access resources, family, friends, professionals, actively confronting problems, not avoiding them, maintaining an optimistic outlook even when it's hard, being able to brainstorm different potential solutions.
The overarching goal, then, is to help teens broaden their perspective, get them out of that tunnel vision where suicide seems like the only option.
Exactly. Expand their repertoire of coping skills, strengthen their cognitive resilience, help them navigate challenges without resorting to suicidal thoughts.
Now, the paper has some really specific practical guidelines for teachers. They're often in a key position to notice things, right?
Absolutely. Front lines in many ways.
Guideline 1, straightforward but crucial. If you're concerned about a student, ask them directly about suicide.
Don't beat around the bush.
No, asking doesn't plant the idea. Often it's a relief for the student that someone noticed and cares enough to ask. Use clear language. Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Have you had thoughts of suicide? Avoid vague stuff.
And if they say yes,
Critical next step. Ask if they have a specific plan. The more detailed the plan, the higher the immediate risk. So for you educators listening, direct, open communication is vital.
vital. Avoiding the topic just makes it harder for them to talk.
Second guideline for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Always pay close attention to any suicidal communications, no matter how indirect or seemingly casual.
Don't try to judge if it's serious or attention-seeking.
Right, even if it is a cry for attention, that's still a clear sign of major distress. The paper uses that powerful analogy, like airport security and talk about weapons. Always take it with utmost seriousness. Every hint needs serious attention from you teachers.
Better to err on the side of caution. Always.
Third critical point, tell someone. If a teacher knows a student is suicidal, break confidentiality promises. Inform parents, guardians, counselors, the principal, maybe even close friends who can help.
No secrets when it comes to suicide risk.
Absolutely. Safety trumps confidentiality here. Sharing info with the right people ensures the student gets the comprehensive support they urgently need.
Essential for getting them the necessary support network.
Fourth, if the risk seems really high or an attempt seems imminent, the teacher's role is to stay with that person until professional help arrives or ensure another responsible adult stays.
Never leave a suicidal teen alone if there's immediate concern.
Never. Immediate support, ensuring they're not vulnerable, is critical in a crisis.
Absolutely critical.
Fifth, teachers should actively listen, keep in touch, show they care, communicate openly, honestly, be empathetic, non-judgmental, focus on understanding their pain.
Try to see their perspective, even if you don't fully get it.
Right. Express a genuine desire to understand. Offer emotional support that conveys belief in their ability to handle the crisis, not empty reassurances that minimize their feelings.
Like, you'll get over it. That's not helpful.
No. Reinforce any non-suicidal coping strategies they're trying. Be accessible. Maintain belief in better solutions. Offer hope with specific, genuine statements like, I truly believe things can get better for you.
Creating that safe, supportive space where they feel heard and understood is vital for building trust and encouraging help-seeking.
And sixth, teachers need to actively intervene. Give practical advice, maybe. Make direct suggestions for seeking help. Work with the student on concrete plans for coping, especially during risky times like weekends.
Help them identify backup plans.
Yeah, backup plans. Make sure they have contact numbers, counseling, crisis lines, maybe yours if appropriate, parents, guardians outside the home. Keep their contact info handy too. The overall aim is raising awareness among staff and encouraging proactive, decisive intervention.
Teachers really do have that unique opportunity to notice changes and provide crucial initial support.
The paper also has guidelines for parents. First off, listen carefully to any talk or hints about suicide. Take it absolutely seriously.
Don't ignore it or try reverse psychology.
No. Ask your child directly if you're concerned. Have you been having thoughts of harming yourself? Open, direct communication at home is just as vital. Parents need to create that safe space for talking about painful emotions without judgment.
Crucial for them to feel comfortable opening up at home.
Second, be consistently supportive. Kids and teens need to feel and know they're supported and valued. Praise, routine accomplishments, efforts, there's no evidence that leads to mediocrity.
If anything, success builds success, right? Builds confidence.
Exactly. Positive reinforcement, feeling valued, crucial for self-esteem and resilience. Bouncing back from challenges.
Absolutely.
Third, accept your teenager's problems as real and important to them, even if they seem small to you.
Avoid belittling, dismissing as teen drama, comparing to your own struggles.
Right. Instead, if you're concerned, take action. Arrange professional help, mental health, clergy, schedule appointments, provide transport, cover costs if needed. Validating their feelings and actively seeking help sends a powerful message. Their struggles are serious, and you're committed to helping.
Shows you're taking them seriously and are there for them.
Fourth, where appropriate, share some of your own past failures and frustrations.
But don't burden them, right?
Right. No making them your therapist. But age-appropriate examples of how you struggled and coped. That provides valuable models. Shows difficulties are normal and can be overcome. Avoid only presenting an image of constant success.
Modeling healthy coping is powerful. Shows them how it's done.
Fifth, and this is a really critical safety measure, firearms. If you have them, ensure they are stored, unloaded, locked securely, ammo separate. Make absolutely sure your teen, especially if struggling or using substances, cannot access them.
And restrict access to other lethal means, too, like large amounts of medication.
Yes, reducing access to lethal means is a crucial step in preventing impulsive acts, absolutely critical.
Critical safety measure.
And overall, for parents, the key is awareness of potential cues and intervening sympathetically but also directively to get them help.
Sympathetic understanding plus proactive steps for safety. Essential.
Finally, guidelines for school administrators. One option mentioned is suicide hotlines.
How effective are they, according to the paper?
Mixed results back then. Used more by women. Most helpful responses seem to be those facilitating emotional expression and actively challenging suicidal statements. But maintaining them is financially intensive.
So a potential resource, but effectiveness wasn't definitively proven, and they cost a lot.
Right. Another common strategy. Suicide prevention training modules for staff and students.
What are the goals there?
Increased awareness, stats, risk factors, promote identification and helpful responses like peer-to-adult reporting, provide info on local mental health resources.
Makes sense, but does the research back them up?
The paper points out their actual effectiveness wasn't strongly supported by experimental research back then. There's even potential for unintended negative consequences, like imitation of suicide is romanticized.
Ah, the copycat concern.
Yeah. So the paper suggests if training is done, avoid sensationalism, maybe portray suicide as a deviant act by someone with significant mental health difficulties, and perhaps target the training most effectively at those who learn a peer is suicidal, and have it done by qualified mental health professionals.
The design and delivery are crucial then. Factual, no glamorization.
Definitely. The paper also suggests leveraging positive contagion, like the Betty Ford approach.
Meaning?
Publicly highlighting help-seeking by well-known figures, celebrities, popular teens, talking openly about therapy, getting help, to encourage adaptive responses among young people. Administrators can facilitate this positive messaging.
Leveraging positive role models, destigmatizing help-seeking. Yeah, that can encourage kids to reach out.
Lastly, the paper addresses postvention, what to do after a suicide occurs in the school community.
Crucial steps.
Yeah. Goals are to alleviate guilt in family friends, which is common, maybe worse than after other deaths. Communicate that predicting individual suicide is often impossible to counter retrospective guilt. Minimize scapegoating, parents, teachers, peers, and reduce the likelihood of imitation.
How do you reduce imitation risk?
Emphasize portraying suicide in a way that avoids glorification. Frame it as a tragic outcome of mental health difficulties. The paper notes high schoolers might see peers as more vulnerable to contagion if they knew the victim well, and if there's a lot of overt sympathy and attention around the death.
So careful handling of the aftermath is key.
Absolutely. Effective postvention is necessary to lessen the emotional repercussions and prevent further tragedies. It's a critical part of a comprehensive school plan.
Okay, so to bring it all together for you, the key takeaway from this deep dive is that teenage suicide is deeply complex. It stems from intense pain, feeling like there are no other options, not a genuine wish for death itself.
Requires a multifaceted approach.
Totally. Understanding risk factors, using assessment tools appropriately, implementing preventative measures that build resilience and coping skills, providing support after a tragedy.
And the roles of teachers, parents, administrators are all vital. Absolutely vital. Creating that supportive, safe environment, intervening effectively when someone's in crisis. Ultimately, preventing teenage suicide needs a community-wide effort. Fostering resilience, promoting mental health literacy, ensuring kids know, without doubt, they're not alone and help is available, that there are pathways to support and a future worth living.
A community-wide effort focused on hope and support.
So here's a final thought for you to really consider. Given that the teenage experience is often marked by significant challenges, right? Social pressures, academic stress, identity questions, an unstable world sometimes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
How can our communities, not just schools, but the broader social fabric, truly cultivate a deep, lasting sense of hope and resilience in young people? How can we collectively counter that devastating perception that suicide is ever a viable solution, and instead ensure they see clear pathways to meaningful support and a future they genuinely look forward to?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Fostering that hope and resilience across the board.
It's something truly important for all of us to reflect on. And we really encourage you to explore these concepts and the resources we've discussed further in your own time.